So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rising Networks presentation of Human Resources, HR for Beginners and Non-HR Managers. And we're really excited to welcome Zuhrah Samim, who is an HR generalist and founder of HR to You. So I'm Zoe Price. I am a programme manager with Innovate, who is a government organisation looking at innovation and research. I am also a chapter lead for the Southwest and also with one of the emerging chapters. So let's look at the next slide. So this is the agenda for today. So what we're going to be covering today, and I won't read all of these, but we're going to be looking at where to begin with HR in a small or a new business, the process of recruiting great talent from job analysis, writing interview questions, job postings, and also performance management process with more impact, as well as much more. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The event is actually being recorded. So if I could just encourage everybody to have their phones on silent and also to mute your microphone during the online event, except if we are having breakout sessions or if there is, or when we get to the Q&A. And with regard to the Q&A, absolutely please ask questions throughout the presentation, but if you could just pop those into the chat box and then we will get through to those at the end of the session during the Q&A. When you want to ask your question, if you could either raise your hand using the raise your hand button or physically raise your hand, just so that we can spot who is asking the questions and then we can introduce you to ask that question at the time. And then obviously if you can unmute your microphone at the time. So just a quick summary of the Rising Network. So the purpose really of the Rising Network is to use the power of community to empower women to realise their true potential and to achieve balance and happiness. And the vision is to be recognised as a global community that empowers women to become change makers. So the Rising Network was founded by Lily Cheng, and in 2012 Lily was working in IT, working really long hours, lots of stress, and she started to look for a support network that would help her to access peer-to-peer support, improve her well-being, manage stress, as we all do with high-profile jobs, also to look at some self-discovery and to reconnect with her purpose. She wasn't able to find anything in existence like that, and so thought, well, rather than just moaning about not being able to find it, I'll go out and create it myself. So created the Rising Network in January 2013 and launched that in Cambridge. So the Rising Network has grown since 2013. And it really helps as a platform to help women build their self-confidence, create meaningful relationships, to find mentors, and much more. So the Rising Network is actually divided up into chapters. And so the local communities, the purpose of having it locally based is that we all know what our own local community needs best. And also to be able to meet locally in events. It also allows everybody to collaborate and also to really create something unique. Now, in the days when we were all trusted to meet each other in person and we were able to wash our own hands, we actually had online in-person events. So there were all sorts of opportunities to meet. Now, those are all still continuing, but they are now moved online for what is the foreseeable future. So there are still network and learn opportunities, still masterclasses, still webinars and panel discussions. They've just moved online for now, including even the Rising Festival, which is the annual event in March, which ties in with International Women's Day. So for anybody that's joined the call today that's not a member, you can join. And within your membership, you are able to attend any of the events. It allows you also to build your network, develop your leadership skills, and also to have a really fun and supportive learning environment. So now I'd like to hand over to Zuhrah to talk about human resources for beginners and for non-HR managers. So I'll hand over to you, Zuhrah.
So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Zuhrah Samim. I'm the founder and CEO of HR2U. So some of you already joining, you've worked with me in the past, so welcome. And so some of you that are new, nice to meet you all. So I'm going to go forward and start. So the first thing, this presentation, what I want to do is bring it back to basics. So it's a bit easier to understand and it's not so strategically led. It's more simple language that everyone could understand. So where to begin with HR? First of all, when you go into a business, you have to see what they have in their personnel department. So what is the structure currently? There's 4 steps that I normally follow. So see what the business has in their personal department. So have they got their files in order? What policies and procedures do they have? They're the most 2 important factors. What codes of conduct they have, and then finally, what is the structure, culture of the business. So you analyze and assess who does what in the business, especially in your head office. So think about confidentiality. So for example, there's 2 directors, but you can't discuss one thing with one director and you can discuss another thing with another director. So you always have to think about confidentiality. It's so, so key and vital. You have to have access to everything related to the business. Now, in some of my roles that I've done in the past, I've been restricted to access, for example, in a specific portal, specific file. And what that means is I can't do my job to its entirety. So you have to have access to everything to be able to do your role and not have any roadblocks. So employee folders, policies and procedures, specific portals. Finally, find out what the business requires for HR. There's a reason you're there. There's a reason they've employed you. So you need to find out why you are there. So how to undertake a HR audit. Now, this is one of the most important factors of a business because it eliminates the risks. When I'm talking about risks, what I'll do in the next couple of slides, I'll tell you what the risk may be. Now, these are tribunal risks. In the UK, we're very, very big in employment law compared to other countries. And one of the things that you have to go and do is eliminate the risk first and foremost. So, what could get the business in trouble? You need to think about if I don't have a specific policy, for example, if there's no disciplinary procedures or guidelines, what could get the business in trouble? So that's one of the first and foremost questions you have to ask yourself. Has everyone got a contract? So within their contract, there's specific elements that needs to be covered. If they don't have a contract, create a contract immediately, but make sure you put a clause in there that this contract was created at this date and it was backdated that. So their original term of employment is stated on there. So for example, I started work today on the 18th of November, but my HR didn't pick up that I didn't have a contract until the 1st of November. So you have to put the 1st of November down, 1st of January down, and then backdate it. So you have to say the first original date was the 18th of November. What should a contract include? These are very, very basic and you can find them online everywhere, but just to give you all a little bit of a summary. Name of the employer and the employee, so who's the contract between, the date the employment commenced. So again, going back to the first point, just bear that in mind if they don't have a contract, because you'll be so surprised how many places don't have a contract, how many people. Date continuous employment began. So the amount the employee will be paid. So what their salary is per hour, annual, monthly, it has to be stated in the contract. Place and hours of work, holiday entitlement. So the holiday entitlement, there's 2 ways of going about it. It's either 20 days, excluding bank holidays, if you are on a permanent full-time contract. If you're not on a 0-hour contract, you accrue 12.07% of every hour worked. Okay, that's a very simple maths to do, but it can get complicated. So anyone has any questions, just pop me an email and I can clarify. Notice period. What is a notice period? Prior to probation, after probation, it has to be stated. If there's a probation clause, then you need to put on there. Statutory sick pay and what what do the employee do if they can't work? So anything statutory should be noted on there. Job title and description. So majority of the time with contracts, you'll see there's a job title, but no description. There will be a brief description, because what would the description will go against what their PDRs are, what their, some people call them OKRs, what their objectives is. Details of any pension scheme entitlement. Normally that's just in standard. You'll be auto-enrolled into the company pension, any collective agreements which may affect the terms of employment. So this could be other benefits that you may include as part of the employment. You have to look at what the key policies and procedures are. As I said, the most important policy is a handbook. The handbook will cover everything from disciplinary to grievances to everything. So as long as they have a handbook, then you can build up on the GDPR, IT security, all those elements for the business, and health and safety. Sorry, forgot to mention that one. So I'm going to go through the examples of some cases that I've come across, and these are only from just Googling. So an employee, when I'm saying eliminating risk, so that goes back to my first slide, eliminating the risk. So an employee with diabetes was humiliated at work, was awarded 14,000 for disability discrimination. So this individual was taken to a first aider, and they were introduced as a diabetic. Now, with HR and being in a HR department, you have to be so careful how you label someone. So, for example, if that had been someone that was quite clued on and not labeling that individual, they would have taken them to the first aider and said, this individual would like, do you want to have a catch up with this individual? So you don't label that individual. This person was told not to tell a colleague about an incident of low sugar level because she would be sacked on the spot. So this person was awarded 14,000. So again, this doesn't go against my previous slide about the audits and checklists and things like that, but it also goes against how we behave as an individual towards this, and also making the individuals around us aware of this. So a lot of the times I've gone to managers and said, you can't say stuff like that. You can't say things like that. You need to rephrase it in this manner. Or even to the simple extent that one tip I could tell you, ensure you never speak about an employee over email. So for example, if a manager messages you, oh, I can't stand this person, this is what they did, this is so annoying, that can be pulled up, because now we've got things like data subject access requests. So always be careful. If you want to talk about an employee, especially to a manager, and especially if it's about performance related or a negative comment can come out of it, go to them, speak to them in person. That's just a tip that I want to give you all. So energy giant fined £230,000 for unfairly dismissing employee that HR didn't know how to deal with. So this person was dismissed on breakdown in trust and confidence. And it was because a grievance that individual by the surname Nutt had raised about their health and safety issues. Now, the judge on that case said there were too many examples of extremely poor practice, and it was a genuine reason for unfairness. So that substantial amount was given out of compensation for that individual. So the handbook, and a lot of HR, good HR, they follow the handbook to the T, because what the judge would do, they'll open the handbook and say, did you follow this? So your grievance says these particular steps need to take place, or your disciplinary says these particular steps need to take in place. Did you follow it? And if you hadn't have followed it, then they would go, okay, there's a rule book in for a reason. Now this is poor practice. So in that element, that's why the reason, and I'm pretty sure that person didn't follow their own handbook. That's why that figure is so high. Now, another example was office administrator discovered male replacement was being paid $3,500 more for the same role. Again, we're looking at sexual discrimination here, and, being treated fairly and equally. A couple of years back, they launched a gender pay gap. A lot of you might know about this. And what happened was a lot of, after a threshold, companies had to do an audit for job roles, salaries paid, male, female. It was literally as simple as that, and location. And it was regarding how equally and fair are male and female paid. And I think one of the biggest industries that was highly affected by that was the media industry, because the female employees were paid a lot less. And we've seen that in the media going forward as well. It's still ongoing with some people. So going on to recruitment now. So recruiting great talent step by step. So first of all, you need to identify what the talent needs are in the business. Now, how I normally do this is I create an org chart. So these are the organizational chart. This is the CEO, that this person sits in this level, you know, finance, sales. You need to categorize it. And then you see, and then put all the names, job titles, salaries in that org chart. And what happens is you can sit down with the managing directors or the directors of the business and say, okay, where are we lacking? Where do we need more resource? And that's how the easiest way you can do it. So identify the talent needs within business. Scope out what the salary is. So do a salary review. And normally how I do a salary review is I put in the job title into Google, and then I'll get Indeed, Monster, Reed, LinkedIn all pop up. And what I do is I look at the job description, the levels of requirements, and I just pick it up from there in terms of what the average minimum, maximum, and what the average salary is. Create a job description that you could do as a base for performance or objectives. So what this means is my job description will later enable my managers to be able to sit down and say, okay, these are your objectives, these are your this is how we're going to score you, or this is how we're going to evaluate your performance. So it's a baseline. So make sure your job description can be reflected upon your performance and objectives. Look at job boards and LinkedIn to headhunt. So depending on the level that you're recruiting, if you're looking for an executive level or a director level, the best place to go is LinkedIn. If you're looking for someone that is not a director level and, you know, some like a retail assistant or a support worker or that kind of, it depends on what level you're looking at. Monster, Reed, Indeed, other job boards you can go into. But your executive levels, you're more likely to find and headhunt through LinkedIn. Match experience of the individual with the job description. So the easiest way you can do that is you can put questions as part of the job application. So do you have 5 years or more experience in XYZ? Yes or no? And they can just tick it along, and you know, you can streamline who you have at the end of it and take it from there. So what does the experience they have in that sector match up to your job description? The education level, all this, even to the extent of skills. So what skills does that individual have, and what are they portraying themselves as having, and to match with their job description? Sorry, I've just talked about key skills and that's just come up. So key skills and education qualification. Next step. So I've worked in a lot of organizations, and every organization have their own particular method of recruiting. So I'm just going to go into that in a little bit. So recruiting is about a process of elimination, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So what you want is you want the top candidate that has applied for that role. So you're eliminating people at every single level and step. So the initial call to ask how they are and potentially book a meeting. So this is my screening call. And I normally start off with, hi Lily, how are you? And I'll give a little bit of background about the company, and then I'll go, right, tell me about yourself. And that gives me so much insight to that individual, so much insight. You know, for example, if Lily goes on about her home life, instead of so much more leaning towards professional, I like a balance. But if it's more home life than professional, you can tell what that individual is going through, everything. Are they the right person for that role? Have they got the right motivations? Sorry, Lily, to be taking up your name. So booking a screening call. Tell me about yourself. What are you good at? What are you not good at? And what don't you like doing professionally? And what would your managers rate you? Now, I've recently come across this 4 screening techniques, and it has been absolutely amazing, because tell me about yourself gives you an overall image of the candidate. What are you good at? And I normally strive for about 8 to 12 answers. And what that gives you is that person's strategically thinking what they're good at, but also they're unconsciously telling you why they're good at it. So they have to justify it. What they're not good at, that's my favorite. Now, what are you not good at? Now, one of the things I'm not good at is filing. Not that I'm not good at it, I can be good at it, but I just don't like doing it. And I have to justify it. And you tend to justify what you're not good at just without realizing. And I had an interview a couple of weeks back, and I said, what are you not good at? And this individual turned around and said to me, I don't know what I'm good at. This is like, what are you getting out of this? I said, what you don't realize is when you tell me what you're not good at, you're automatically telling me why you're not good at it, and why don't you like it, and what the process of being good at it is. I hope that makes sense. What would your managers rate you 1 to 10? So if I said, Lily, what would your last manager say? And she would automatically say 8, but she would justify why she didn't get the other 2. Book competency interviews with a hiring manager. So the next step I would do is put them forward to the hiring manager. So go through each job and their CV and ask competency questions along with the job description and what is required for the role. Tell me about a time this happened. How do you deal with this kind of situation? Could you have done something a little bit different to get a different result? What are your high points and what you're most proud of in your role? What are your low points and what really stands out that you're not happy about? Always ask if there's anything else they want to add. Now, the reason I say this is because the candidate automatically assumes that they haven't given you enough answers or enough response, and they start filling in the gaps. And this is where you, again, process of elimination. You're trying to find the best candidate, and this is how you do it. Onboarding. Now, there's 7 steps for effective onboarding. So prepare colleagues in the team for the new employee. Now, the worst thing is going into a team and no one knowing who you are. So ensure that everyone knows there's a new person coming on board. You know, this is their name, a little bit of background. This is what the industry they've worked in, and they're going to be very, very highly effective in the industry that they're coming in. They're going to be an asset. So you're selling that employee. Have their new equipment or space. Have the new employees' workspace or equipment been delivered already? Now, the reason I'm saying delivered is everyone's working from home, and I've just had a pickup for laptop to go to someone's house. So have they got the right equipment to be working, doing what they need to do? Is their workspace set up, so their desks? Make sure the new employee has access to all business necessities. That goes back to portals, policies, procedures, onboarding leaflets, make introductions, setting meetings up. So this employee has just started for this role, and they need to have an introductory call with the managing director because they will be working together. So making introductions. Plan a team lunch. The best thing about so as a new employee, we've all done it. We've gone into an organization and we've been very, very hesitant, meeting new people and new business and learning so much. So plan a team lunch so it's a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere so the employee feels at home. And one of the things is with onboarding, it will automatically guarantee the longevity of service for the employee. So that's very, very important. Allow plenty of time for training. So don't expect the employee to pick up something on their first day or second day. Give them time to learn. Everyone learns in different methods and ways. So allow plenty of time for them to understand, ask questions, and being able to deliver effectively. So you set them up for success. So what to watch out for when you're doing your interviews? So, sorry, this should have been the slide up before the onboarding. So language used, what kind of language you use. I picked up a phone to a recruiter a couple of weeks ago and they were like, hello, innit, you know what I mean? And I thought, oh my God, I can't work with this person. And then I was getting emails back going, instead of using you, as in Y-O-U, he was putting you are. And I was like, okay, this, you know, I don't know how effective he would be with delivering. And that's a recruiter. I'm talking about candidates and employees. They have to sell themselves. Constant negative feedback. So one thing I would say is watch out for constant negative feedback. So if you're talking about past employees, yes, if they're strategic in the way they're talking about it, look, I had this issue and we found the solution. They need to be solution focused rather than always focusing on the negative feedback. What stands out and what doesn't make sense? So now this leads to the next bit. So can you paint a mental picture in your head about what they're saying? If they're telling you a story, can you paint it? Can you think about it exactly how they're saying it? So that's very, very important, because you know how to eliminate the selling points. So are they trying to sell themselves? Some people are very good at selling themselves. Are they selling themselves? What is the truth? Now, going on to performance management. I quite like performance management because it's, you know, there's different elements to it, and we'll go into it in a minute. Now, it's about strategically managing performance. Now you're putting a strategy in place. So what are the objectives? Are they SMART? So are they specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable? Are they relevant? Are they, and also setting a time bound. So state what the person will do, their specific target. Achieve X amount of sales. Measurable, you've already put the number in there, X amount. Achievable, is it likely to happen? Is it unrealistic? Is it realistic? Looking at the relevancy towards what they're doing in this job and towards a business and delivering that. Time bound, you need to put a time limit to it. So in 3 months. One-to-ones. Now, if anyone's worked with me in the past, they will know I'm a big, big sucker for one-to-ones. I love one-to-ones. The reason is employees can find out what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, pick up any constructive feedback, and perform better with every step. And if that person's very, very committed and motivated, you'll see in every one-to-one, they've taken your feedback and they've got better and better at it. Half yearly and yearly reviews, so PDR, performance development reviews. Now, how I do this is I set the objectives, I have my regular one-to-ones, and then I have my half yearly and yearly reviews to go back and see how they're performing against their objectives. So how they're doing. And normally I use platforms, HR platforms that can help me do that. So how are they, you know, how are they performing against the company's core values? So are they delivering with integrity? Give me an example of delivering with integrity. How do they do it? Score themselves, how they're doing that. And going back to the objectives, did they deliver, yes or no? What they will score themselves, what the high points were, what the low points were, what any feedback they could give, because what that would help you is setting any future objectives. What happens when someone is not performing? So usually with any sort of contract, we have this lovely thing called probation reviews. Now, with certain companies, you only need 3 months, because by 3 months, you can understand exactly how that individual works and whether they're performing or not, if it's quite achievable or not. So probation reviews. PIPs, performance improvement plans. Performance improvement plans are a fantastic way of getting someone to perform, because the responsibility is not put towards just the employee, it's also put towards the employer. So what are the objectives that the employee needs to reach to be able to be successful, and what they haven't been doing already, ensuring that it is SMART. So the objectives are SMART based, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Now, in addition to that, the employer also needs to have an objective. So what their objective is to help that individual reach their maximum capability in achieving those objectives. So what could the employer help them do? Always be available to coach and mentor, always help the individual with, I'll give you extra training, for example. So you're enabling that objective. You're not setting them up for failure. You're setting them up for success. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the employee life cycle. And a lot of what we've just spoken about, it just drops into the employee life cycle. But I want to go into it a little bit more deeper so everyone can understand the employee life cycle a little bit more. So, 1 second. So first and foremost is attraction. So how do you find that employee? How do you find that right candidate? Job boards, as we've just already spoken, headhunting. So how you attract them. Recruitment. So how are you going to be recruiting them? What kind of process? What is your interview process? Have you got it strategically mapped out? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Transparency. So if you've got someone in the pipeline, look, this is the timeline that we're looking at. These are how we're going to be doing it. The next steps are X, Y, Z. So transparency is quite key in this because it gives them a flavour and an idea already of what they can expect of the organisation. Onboarding, having an onboarding plan. Now, normally this depends. This can take from being 1 week to up to 3 weeks, a month, 2 months. So having an onboarding plan, meeting key people, having the relevant training, having the relevant access to policies, documents, portals, anything they need to do to enable them to do their job. Okay, onboarding. That is so important. I can't tell you. As I said, there's studies and cases to say if an individual has been onboarded correctly, their longevity of service is much longer than a person that hasn't been. Enablement, so engagement, giving them right training, in ordering them to help them do their job, their role, development, training, PIPs, performance improvement plans, PDRs, objectives, all go into that. Retention. Now, with retention is reward management. Now, what is a rewards element? And one of the things is people benefits. That's the easiest way to describe this. So do we have a performance bonus? Do we have something that we can allow the individual to say, look, this is what you would get for doing X, Y, Z. So what are you motivating them with? Rewards. Separation. Now, separation, I know a lot of people, when they decide to leave, a lot of companies just sit back and go, well, they're leaving. They don't put any sort of effort. But what you don't understand is the importance of separation. And what that means is if that individual leaves, they're going to be talking about you as a company. They spent time with you. They'll be recommending people. They'll be putting reviews. Everything's online now. They'll be putting reviews about you on, different platforms, Glassdoor, for example. So you need to ensure that that person leaves with a good taste in their mouth about the organisation, about the people. In addition to that, also the exit interview process. So a lot of the information that you gather from the exit interview would be helping you going forward strategically for a business. So what can you do better? Now, a lot of these exit interviews, a lot of companies don't take in consideration at all, but it's so important to sit down and analyze the data and what the employee has said. And is there a repetition? So, and then you bring that all out and you create a strategy going forward. Thank you for your time. I've put my number on there and my link to my email address, and I'm available on LinkedIn too. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need any help or assistance.
If anybody would like to just raise their hand and ask a question to Zuhrah, that would be great. No, I have, if that's okay. So I'll go ahead and ask my question to start off with. So thanks very much, Zuhrah. That's a really great presentation and really helpful. So one question I've got is around how to introduce aspects of ED&I into your recruitment process so that you can ensure that you're not bringing your unconscious biases into your recruitment process.
Can everyone see me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Can you just rephrase what you mean by ED&I, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah. Okay. So with regard to equality, diversity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
And so I've just gone through a recruitment process myself, but it was really important to me that I made sure that I had access to the greatest range of diverse applicants as I could, so that I had the choice of picking the best candidate I could, rather than or trying to eliminate any unconscious bias that I had, to provide the widest selection of candidates.
Okay. So did you, were you provided the CVs by your HR?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I've worked in organisations where equality, diversity, you know, it was very, very one particular, I don't like to use certain words, but so for example, it was an all male white background of individuals. And one of the things I did was, when I noticed that particularly, I sat down and I edited the CV so there was no mention of names, nothing that could give away their sex, where they're from, even education. So for example, if you've got a candidate that's studied in India, but they've got their masters in the UK, I removed all that and I just said masters in this, not even where they studied. So if you want to go forward with equality and diversity, I mean, that is so important nowadays. I would edit the CV as HR. I would sit down and I would remove anything that could give away the candidate for you, so you can go into it completely blind to who you are going to be taking to next steps forward.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. That's really helpful. We have got one question here. Do you have a current HR challenge? If you're happy to share, please please leave your current HR challenge in the chat. So that's to everybody, really, just so that Zuhrah could answer those. I do have another question while we're waiting. I always have questions. So you mentioned at the end about retention, and that's really key, because it's really expensive to go through the process of recruiting people all the time, and it's very disruptive.
Yeah.
You mentioned financial rewards, which are going to be key to pretty much everybody. But how key are the non-financial rewards in retention? So things like being able to have flexible working, to be able to work from home, to change your hours, to work autonomously. How important are those to retention?
As I mentioned in the video, it's about benefits as a general. Now, those benefits that you've just mentioned, they don't cost anything to the business. In fact, it does increase productivity, because individuals have a work-life balance. They feel more motivated, they feel more engaged, and they're more comfortable in the organisation, working-wise. So the cost, there doesn't need to be a cost element associated to it, and there's a lot of benefits out there that is very minimal cost to the company. So for example, cycle to work. It's a tax-free benefit that the government introduces. You just loan the employee that amount of money, but you take it from their payslip every month. So it's more like a loan. But at the end of it, if you think about it, it doesn't cost the employer anything at all. So there's elements of that you can look into that doesn't cost the company anything. And also, if I go back, some people are motivated by different things, whether it's a tangible reward or an intangible reward. Some people, a simple thank you will go a long way for employees. A simple like email sent saying this employee went above and beyond, and this is what they do, and little congratulation emails floating about the business, that will go a long way. In addition to that, You have other aspects like Employee of the Month, or an employee newsletter that is sent out monthly. It just increases engagement to a next level. I hope I've answered that question.
No, definitely. And I think it seems as though that's becoming almost as important as the financial rewards now, certainly to a younger generation. They're really looking for different ways to be rewarded. But I agree with you about the thank you, because actually, I think that's something that employers are perhaps not as good at as they could be.
Yeah, you have different. I mean, I've worked with a number of different people, different personalities, different way of working. And as HR, you have to adapt yourself to that element and also try and change it as much as you can in terms of the culture. So first and foremost, you have to adapt. And, you have to find the way of thinking and you adapt to it. And then slowly you bring in your little twists and turns to it to make it a little bit better. But yes, a simple thank you can go a very long way. I can't even emphasize that enough.
Thank you. So Andrea has asked this question. Is there a legal obligation for the HR team to share with the person's manager their leaving interview notes? I recently had a team member leaving from my team and the HR conducted a leaving questionnaire or interview, but they didn't share it with me. All I have been told is that there's nothing to worry about.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that, Andrea. Now, I normally, when I do an interview, no, there's no legal implications towards it at all. The person leaving, they might say, look, this is confidential and I don't want it to be shared. That is one thing. Another thing is, what is your process of your company? That's a completely different other thing. But what I tend to do and what the best practice is, I will take key snippets of feedback given and I would share it to the team and I would say, this is the feedback I've been given. Do you think we could possibly change the way we do this process? And as HR, you can see the full picture of everything going on in the business, but sometimes you don't have the capabilities of changing because people are stuck in their ways, which you're nodding and you've probably faced this, yeah? So what I find a lot of the time is you are planting seeds. So you're planting in a manner or a way that eventually they're going to think it's their idea, but it's been your idea the whole time, right? So you would say, I would do it in this manner and I would get this result. What do you think about doing it in this way? And you just let them think about it. And the power of silence, let me just tell you one thing. And I think I mentioned it to my colleague Yasmin, she's sitting on the call now. The power of silence can get you so much. It's unbelievable. That 2-second silent that you're sitting there, automatically the other party needs to fill in that gap. So, put the question out there and wait for them to respond to you. Now, I know I've completely gone off your question, but I would say if they didn't share it with you, it's probably because their process or is because the person said something confidential and they didn't want to share it. But I would share it normally. I would say, let's share it, and maybe approach it in a manner to say, I want to change. I want to do best practice within my team, and I want to get some feedback as to how we can do it. Can you please look at the interview notes and suggest what I can do rather than tell me what they can do? Got it? Big thumbs up.
That's been really helpful. Thank you very much.
No problem. A lot of it is the power of language and how you phrase it more than anything else. And it's I wasn't always like this. It took time. So just keep practicing and seeing different ways of getting what you need and want.
I'll definitely go back and rephrase my ask, if you like, and see whether that helps. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Andrea.
Anybody got any extra questions? Any other questions that they want to ask?
I've got a question, if I may.
Mm.
So, Zuhrah, lots of us are working from home. I'm sure it's an additional challenge and pressure on businesses and HR. What's your advice on managing remote teams and keeping employees more engaged, you know, particularly in this difficult time with COVID? Do you have any tips or recommendations that people can put in place within their organizations and within their immediate team that they're managing?
Sure. So remote working is quite difficult because it's a completely new area that we're all in. I mean, it used to be tubes full of packed people going to the office daily, and there will be the odd person that will be working here and there from home, like a couple of days a week or one day a week. So it's a completely different and abnormal practice for all of us to be sitting at home working off our laptops and work and things like that. And engagement is something that is a trial and error kind of way, because what may work for one person won't work for another person. Now, as an individual myself and as HR, what I tend to do is I just do little check-in messages. So, for example, hi Lily, how are you doing? Just checking you're okay. How's things going? And that goes a long way, and always trying to be available for that individual and person, and ensuring that they're comfortable and what they're doing. So a lot of the time when you're working in an office, you're already pre-equipped with office equipment, chairs, tables, everything. At the moment, people are working off their dining table on a normal dining chair. Are they comfortable? And that plays a big role in engagement. So just ensuring that we're aligned with the employees' expectations of working, and if we're aiding that, and simple messages, you know, how we can do. And the best thing, I always believe, having a HR platform will also help you in terms of delivering your HR work, but also it will help you in engagement as well, because everyone's on track. We know what everyone's doing. You know, there's simple thank yous, employee of the month, there's rewards. People are always they're always together on it. And there's tools like Teams, Skype, you know, WhatsApp, you know, that we can constantly use. So that's really important, that we're always communicating with our teams more than anything. And one of the other things I've got to mention and bring up is mental health well-being. With working from home, that's been a big factor. And you know, and it's, I would, if we've got a newsletter or something within the business, we could have, okay guys, are you taking regular walks? Are you going out the house? Because what tends to happen is you've got a rhythm going, and self-care doesn't come into it automatically. So go and take regular walks, take a breath, you know, do something that makes you happy, because you're sitting at home, and I bet you any money we're probably having cup noodle and toast for lunch. You know, look after yourself. So it's about delivering that message and reminding people about self-care and helping themselves help. And that's very important.
I'll put my cup noodle in the bin in that case.
But we all do it. I mean,
it's so true.
You know, I'm HR and I do it. You know, and it wasn't until a couple of days ago and I realized, oh my God, I haven't left the house in 4 days. And you know, and I thought to myself, no, put your jogging bottoms on, put your trainers on, and just go for a walk. It doesn't matter where you go, just get out for some fresh air, because that can do a world of good.
Anybody else with a question? Any more questions for Zuhrah?
Aldona, Artie, Yasmin, Katrina?
No, probably if I've got, I will call you direct. Is everything new? I just listening to. Is everything like new, but it's really true what you're saying, and it's very like, you know, interesting.
Thank you, Aldona.
Thank you.
Okay, well in that case, I will just share my screen again, and we'll just go through a few bits. you so much again, Zuhrah, for a really great presentation. It was really helpful, and I think everybody got some really good tips out of that, so thank you. So just before everybody goes, I just wanted to remind people of some events that are coming up within the next few months. So beginning of December, we've got Project Risk in Volatile Times, so that's really key to everybody at the moment. Then we've got early December, we've got Life Audit and 2021 goal setting, so I shall definitely be attending that one. Then mid-January, we've got Driving Your Career Forward. We've got a 3-week course starting mid-January to early February on redefining your success and what your long-term win is. And then towards the end of January, we've got how to give and receive feedback in different cultures. And then, as you can see also from the bottom left, we've got a mentoring circle that is being rolled out in early January. So we will be giving some more information about that coming up soon. For anybody who is a member and is not already part of the Rising Network Facebook group, please do join, because there's lots of extra features on there, daily motivation, tips for success. And of course, if you are not a member and you want to become a member, then you will certainly have access to that. So thanks everyone again for attending today. We're going to be sending out an email shortly with regard to some feedback on the session. And that really helps us to make sure that we are offering the right content for everybody, and we're tailoring the content to what you're looking for. So we'll be sending that out. If you could complete that short survey, that would be really helpful. And if you're not a member of the Rising Network already, then we certainly look forward to welcoming you to the Rising Network. But in the meantime, if everyone can stay healthy and safe, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event.